Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at a bunch of sources today on Google's latest big AI announcement.
That's right. The upgraded preview of Gemini 2.5 Pro dropped June 5th, 2025.
And they're aiming for general availability pretty quick, mid-June, apparently.
Yeah, seems like it.
So think of this as your kind of shortcut. We want to unpack what this thing is, how it performs, and maybe the biggest piece why Google's doing this now.
Especially with the pricing strategy they've rolled out.
Exactly. It looks like they're pushing hard on both performance and making it accessible. So let's get into it. What exactly is Gemini 2.5 Pro?
Well, Google's calling it their most intelligent model yet. It's technically the Gemini 2.5 Pro Previews 06005 version,
Okay.
and it builds right on top of Gemini 1.5. So that likely means it's using that sparse mixture of experts transformer architecture,
Yeah.
For efficiency with huge amounts of data.
Right, MoE. And speaking of huge,
Hmm.
the context window.
It's massive, 1 million tokens for input right in the preview.
1 million tokens, wow.
And they're talking about doubling that eventually to 2 million. Plus, you get 64,000 tokens for the output.
And the knowledge cutoff, still fairly recent.
January 2025, so pretty up to date.
Okay. And it handles different types of input.
Oh, yeah. Natively multimodal from the ground up. Text, code, images, audio, video. It understands all of that.
But the standard output for this preview version is text.
Exactly. The model family can do native audio, but you need specific APIs for that, like their live API or the TTS versions. This preview mainly gives text back.
Gotcha. Now, beyond just the raw specs, the sources seem to highlight some smarter features, things about how it thinks.
Right. They've got this experimental thing called deep think. Uses what they describe as parallel thinking for really complex problems.
Interesting.
And maybe more immediately useful, especially for businesses, are the thought summaries.
What are those exactly?
It basically lets you see the model's sort of raw reasoning process, like the steps it took, the tools it considered using.
Okay. So for debugging or trust, that sounds huge.
Absolutely. For enterprise audit trails and just understanding why the model gave an answer, it's a big step towards transparency.
And what about coding? That seems like a big focus area, too.
Definitely. It's showing top results on things like Web Dev Arena and code editing benchmarks like Aider Polyglot.
Okay.
But here's the stat that jumped out at me. A reported 40% reduction in function calling errors.
40%. That's really significant, right, for building actual AI agents?
It really is. Think about building chatbots or assistants that need to use tools or APIs. Fewer errors there means much more reliable applications.
Makes sense. Now, back to that million token window. How well does it actually use all that context?
Well, it's definitely operational. For finding, a specific piece of info in a huge document, the needle in the haystack test, it does really well, I recall.
I sense but.
Yeah, there's a bit of nuance.
Oh.
More complex tasks, like the MRCR V2 benchmark, which needs the model to find and synthesize multiple facts from that long context. Well, performance at 1 million tokens is more challenged, around 16.4% accuracy there.
So size isn't everything. Complexity matters.
Exactly. It can see everything, but pulling complex relationships out of 1 million tokens is still hard.
Okay, let's shift to performance overall and the competition. This is where things get really interesting, especially with the cost factor.
For sure. So performance-wise, it's hitting top spots on human preference leaderboards. Arena ELO is 1470, Web Dev Arena is 1443. Very strong.
And academic benchmark.
Also strong. GPQA at 86.4%, AAE for math up to 88%. It's clearly aimed squarely at competitors like OpenAI's O3, GPT 4.1, and Anthropic's Claude 4 Opus and Sonnet.
Okay, so it's playing in the big leagues. But the price?
This is the kicker. Input tokens are 1.25 per million, at least for prompts under 200K tokens.
125. Compared to what?
Well, OpenAI's O3 is around $10 per $1 million input tokens, and Anthropic's Claude Opus 4 is about $15.
Wow. That's not just competitive, that's disruptive pricing.
Totally. It feels very strategic, a clear move to get developers and enterprises to adopt it quickly based on cost effectiveness, alongside the performance.
Okay, so bringing this down to earth, what does this combination mean for, people listening, developers, businesses?
Well, first is accessibility. You can try it out easily in Google AI Studio. For more serious work, it's in Vertex AI with all the MLOps tooling. And it's rolling into the regular Gemini app, too.
And for enterprise specifically?
They've built in features like thinking budgets, let you control cost versus latency, capping analysis at up to 32K tokens if needed, plus those thought summaries for transparency. And they mention specific hardening against indirect prompt injection attacks, which is a key security concern.
And are companies actually seeing results?
Yeah, the sources mention early partners. Box AI apparently saw over 90% accuracy on some complex data extraction tasks. And Cognition AI, the folks behind Devon, said it felt like working with a more senior developer. High praise.
That's pretty compelling. Are there any caveats?
Well, like we said, complex reasoning in long context still has room to grow. And while it leads in many areas, some benchmarks, like SWBench for agentic coding, still show competitors like Claude Opus or OpenAI o3 ahead right now.
Okay.
And, developer feedback on earlier preview versions mentioned some inconsistencies. It highlights the challenge of keeping these huge models stable, safe, and reliable, even as Google emphasizes their safety work. Rapid iteration always has trade-offs.
Right. So, wrapping this up, Gemini 2.5 Pro looks like a really major contender stepping into the ring.
Definitely. It's got top-tier performance in a lot of key areas, that massive context window, some interesting reasoning features.
And that super aggressive price point. It feels like it could really change the economics for developers and businesses wanting to use powerful AI.
Which leads to the big question, I think. Does putting this much power, this much context, at this price point truly democratize access to frontier AI in a way we haven't quite seen yet?
Or will the practical hurdles of real-world application, the nuances in performance, and those ongoing safety and consistency challenges kind of temper its immediate impact?
Exactly. That's the key thing to watch as this rolls out more broadly. Definitely something to keep thinking about.